Hello and welcome everybody to Apologetics 101 and welcome to the Tomkins controversy. A controversy that's been going on for many months now, and I got this whole video series documenting it and discussing it. It's mostly a response video series that's intended to respond to one evolutionist named Erika from Gutsy Gibbon. Although it does, it has like a third goal where it just kind of responds to the whole controversy as a whole. So I will be dealing with like arguments of brew hips later and that sort of thing. But I mostly responding to Erika. The first two goals that I have is responding to Erika. The first one is as a response video series to her responding to my Tomkins interview, and the second was responding to Erika as a whole involving this controversy. And so most of the responses are going to be to Erika. And of course, we have a hot one for you today. A new discovery is made. One of the natures of a controversy is that discoveries are going to often be made, and controversies can change. I'm so glad I did this as a video response series, because controversies can change like the wind. They can change like a flock of birds. They can go in any direction.
Changes just like a flock of birds evading a predator.
They're flocking this way.
Before you know it, and tides can turn quick, and you never know what's going to happen as a result, and you might have to like roll with the punches or go in a different direction than you was going in, and so forth. But in the case of I made a discovery about what Erika is doing as far as her self-analysis, and I figured it out what she was doing. Rob Carter later confirmed that this was what's going on, and so I maintained this thesis all the way up until now, and now proof positive that my thesis is correct. But we'll get more into that later on as we move forward in the video. But there's a juicy discovery that was made. This new discovery, which is going to further rectify my previous discovery and thesis, was not actually discovered by me. It was discovered by one Dr. Rob Carter, who pointed it out to me. And I'm going to be conveying on my channel. I'm the first one, as far as I know, to actually release this information. So this is going to be cool. We're going to get into it. We're going to discuss this topic matter. And without further ado, let's dive in. Well, let's dive in. We got a lot to cover. I'm going to try not to be as long as it was in the previous video. I know someone made a concern that it was really long, because it was like over 3.5 hours. It wasn't part of the Tomkins controversy necessarily, but it was just like a really long video because I had a lot to say, a lot to respond to. But we're going to try to be a little shorter than that. Hopefully, maybe not more than 2 hours or so, but we'll see. Tomkins controversy videos usually run roughly about 2 hours, usually, episode on that. But anyway, we're going to dive right in so that way we can get right to it. All right, this is going to be a clip from Erika. Got to give it a section. We're going to play it in parts. I'm going to comment on it, and then when we get to a certain area, we're going to discuss this discovery that was made. So, fasten your seatbelts, you're in for a ride.
Part 3. Gutsick Gibbon destroys Gutsick Gibbon. We've talked about what gapped and ungapped do within BLAST as parameters, but I want to take a minute.
I will be dealing with the ungapped arguments, both of Erika and Ruhips later on. I'm not going to deal with it here because this is not the purpose of this video.
then and talk about the other parameters that are utilized in my own and in Tomkins and in Carter's methodologies, because they're kind of important. We already mentioned this, but gapped versus ungapped determines how BLAST handles indels. Reward penalty and xdrop determines how long the program will attempt to align sequences. When the xdrop is met, the alignment will cease. The dust and masking parameters determines how BLAST will handle repeats and masked regions in the query or the database. The max target sequence parameter determines the maximum number of target sequences that are reported as hits. And the max HSPS function determines the maximum number of high-scoring pairs that are reported in the results. This is usually 1 in genomic comparisons. So looking at the other differences between Tomkins 2013, which is here, and I'll shorten it so perhaps we can see a little bit better so we can see everything.
Oh, by the way, I didn't show this, but she adorned, for this section of the video, she adorned her humility hat. What she calls her humility hat, where she's got like a little tape thing, humility on there. She actually does a little bit better job with some of her arguments in the section than I noticed she does anywhere else in her video. So, I mean, she's not perfect. There's still problems and issues here and there, but it's not as bad as the rest of her videos. So, I'm beginning to like that humility hat. She should be wearing it a little bit more often than she does. But anyway, let's go forward.
That we need to. And the good method was his use of a 10e value, word size 11 was the same, max target sequence 1, dust, no, soft masking false, and ungapped. So if ungapped wasn't the reason, I knew it couldn't be soft masking false or dust no, because as I mentioned in the previous video, I intentionally utilized unmasked genomes so that these would not come into play, so that they wouldn't matter as much.
Okay, what she's talking about as far as unmasked genomes, what she's talking about is like when you download the genome, like from Ensemble, you would get an option for masking the repeats or downloading them unmasked. Now, it is better off to not mask the repeats when you're downloading the unmasked on the genome, because you don't want it to be masked. This gives you a little bit more leeway in your study. If, say, for example, you have to mask repeats or see, the difference between this parameter or that parameter or whatever the case may be. So it's better to not mask the genome. I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons too, but it's better off to not mask the genomes when you're downloading it. So she did right by not masking the genome when she downloaded it. However, that doesn't mean that BLAST will not mask the repeats. If you put it on, if you have a dust filtering on there, you will mask the repeat. Tomkins used no dusting, so that matters. Because that means the repeats wouldn't be masked. The fact that she downloaded unmasked genomes would not in any way impact the parameters in BLAST themselves. You can still have a parameter in BLAST with no dust repeats. I haven't really checked out her reference there from her other video, so I'd have to look at that, see what she said on that. Maybe I'm not understanding her correctly here, but just as keep in mind, it doesn't matter at the end of the day that the genome isn't if masked repeats. So it still comes down to the same. My argument still stands on that. But I just wanted to bring that up. She says it doesn't matter that much. It would still matter, because then that would mean you have spurious alignments. Now, it technically would matter if you take the best alignment, right? It wouldn't matter at all, unless, of course, you're doing a global percent identity. And we discussed this in previous videos. We're going to discuss it here later. But it's going to suddenly start making a lot more sense, and you're going to get why that would be an issue if you're doing a global percent alignment of the and why global percent alignment. What I mean is a totaling of the percent of a single search result. Like you got one search result, and you got a series of other alignments that also occurs, and if you total up all that. Now, if you have 100% all the way across, that's fine, and we're going to get into that later. But if you have spurious alignments and you got 80%, 60%, 50%, whatever, then doing a total alignment of the search result is going to matter a lot. And Tomkins, of course, isn't doing that. Tomkins is taking the best alignment. And, of course, the best alignment against itself is always 100% unless there's a problem with the algorithm.
He has max target sequence, just like we do, and the e-value stuff is kind of inconsequential for our purposes today.
We discussed e-value last couple videos I did. The last video in the top controversy, we discussed e-value. I also discussed it on my very last video I did on my channel while I was responding to certain critical attacks she made, and we discussed that as well. I'm not going to get into that. E-value, I have no problem with what she's saying here exactly, but she sees e-value 10 as being a major problem, and even Dr. Korf no longer holds that position regarding Tomkins' study. He still thinks it's a problem, but he doesn't think it's significant, not to the point where it would cause a major issue. But and I agree with Tomkins. Your e-value can, or agree with Korf on that your e-value can do that if you get too high of an e-value. But in this case, it's not going to make a major impact. Here she's saying essentially that, but she's saying for the purpose of what we're discussing here.
But then I noticed, right, max HSPS. Max HSPS is missing from Jeffrey Tomkins' methods. This is big, because if Tomkins isn't using max HSPS, then he's going to be getting hundreds, if not thousands, of inappropriate partial matches all over the genome, not just the best hit. And this completely screws with BLAST's percent identity column, obviously. So if you were to average it, you're going to get an insanely low percent identity that is completely erroneous, because you're just including all of these partial matches, 50% match, 60% match, 70% match, which actually have nothing to do with the real alignment that exists. To use an absurd and simplified example, if you search the database for a sequence that was 10 base pairs long, ATA, GG, CAT, CG in this case, reporting partial hits, as in max HSPS is not equal to 1, will report every partial match alongside the true match. So you might get one match that is 100% identical, and then you might get 5 more that are varying levels of similar all across the genome. Now imagine that you averaged your percent identity column for that output. You wouldn't get a 100% identity, even of something to itself. Setting max HSPS as equal to 1 ensures that only the best match is reported. So the very first thing I did was...
Alright, before we get into the rest of that. Alright. A lot to go on this. Most of what she said about max HPS was correct, except for one thing. Not setting the max HPS will not cause a kind of a global percent to happen, where a percent identity to happen. That will only happen if you write that into the program. If you're actually either writing a third-party program or you're writing it into BLAST, whatever the case may be, it's found within your script. We're going to get into that later. I'm not going to touch on that now because that's going to be a big part of what we're going to discuss later, the big surprise I've got for everybody that was discovered. But we're not going to cover that right now. But if you write it in there like that, then it would do that. But BLAST does not do that automatically. It does not even do that by default. In fact, the online version of BLAST, the only one I can use at the moment until I can figure out how to download BLAST on one of my computers or something. I'm going to try to see if I can work on that problem later when I get to the gap versus ungap, because I would like to be able to do some experiments with both gap and ungap, and I can't make that setting with the online version. I think it's just set to gapped, so I can't sit there and use ungapped. But I would like to be able to do that when I respond to that later. So I'm going to try to see if I can find a way to get BLAST on one of my computers at least, and try to work from there. But any given case, I think that what she said about max HPS 1, most of what she said is true. If you don't have that set, you get every single hit. That's absolutely correct. If you do have that set, like say you have it set to 1, max HPS 1, then you only get the best alignment. You don't get any of these other hits. If you set it to 10, like max HPS 10, then you get the first 10 best alignments. I've mentioned that before, and that's correct. Now, what Tomkins did, Tomkins took the best alignment. What he did was he Whether he set max HPS 1 or not, in a minute I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because she's making it look like that's a bad thing to not set it. That's not correct. But it would be a bad thing if your program is programmed to include every alignment. Then that would be an issue, which we're going to find out in a minute if that's the case. But in any given case, as long as your program isn't programmed that way, it wouldn't matter, because you take the best. Like I said, the online version does that, where it's automatically not set on the online version. It's not default, and I have no way of setting it. You can set it on the command line, but you don't have the command line access to the command line on the online version of Blast. You only have what they allow you to have there, and you're very limited on what you can do with it. And so as a result, I get every single hit, including the best alignment. But I could still choose the best alignment. It doesn't give me a global percent of all those alignments. It doesn't do that. It doesn't average them out or nothing like that. The only math Blast does on default is the percent identity for each alignment. That's the only thing it does. It doesn't calculate all the percent alignment and gives you a total of all that. It doesn't do that unless you program it to do that. Now on the command line, there's probably ways to input scripts and things like that to program it that way. But simply not having a max HPS 1 or a max HPS selected, HSPS selected, that does nothing. It'll do something. It gives you all the matches, but it also gives you the best alignment. And you just go up there and get the best alignment. You don't necessarily have to do all that. Now, what Tomkins did is he also used target sequence 1. That's interesting, because that means that only the best alignment gets saved. It doesn't matter if your best alignment or your second best alignment is in chromosome 1. If your best alignment is in chromosome 2, that's what target sequence is, the chromosomes. And so it just targets that particular sequence and saves only that one. So he's only after the best alignment. All right, and of course he's not programming a script to do a global percent to the total thing and so forth. You can actually find the target sequence 1 on almost all of them except for the 2011. But I think the reason I doesn't do it on the 2011 is because he's using a wide variety of different parameters. And so his parameters are kind of like all over the place with this 2011 paper and this 2011 study, because he's using a wide variety of different situations. He's got like 2 different experiments, 1 mask, 1 unmask. He uses 5 different e-values. He uses 3 different word sizes and so forth. So he's using a wide variety of parameters, and so they're just like going all over the place as a result. So, yeah, he's trying out different things, and so as a result, I don't know if he had it set for target sequence 1 or not, or just didn't report on it, but I don't know. But in given case, where in the studies where he just kind of lists the ones, in like a row or something like that on the other studies, he does actually mention target sequence 1. So he's only after the best alignment. All right, he's not doing a global percent of all the alignments, because he knows that would be a bonehead mistake to make. No offense, Erika's husband, Mr. Gibbon. No offense. But that would be a bonehead mistake to make to do that. But he's not doing that. What he's doing is he's taking the best alignment. And you could do this whether you set max HPS to or not. I took the best alignment. On all my experiments, I took the best alignment. But it didn't do a global percent alignment or nothing like that on the online version. But it doesn't do that. Regardless which version of Blast you use, it doesn't do that. As far as the max HPS 1 function. As far as that particular parameter. Now, because it only controls what is being reported. It doesn't do math like that. It doesn't calculate all of it. As Erika said on the weighted versus unweighted, she said you have to input that in on Blast. Remember, she said you have to sit there and program that in. She said her husband had to program that in. That's how she knows that you have to do that. That's what she said.
Okay, so here's our system, right? Gotta change directories to get to the right place, change directory document, change directory genomes. Okay, so now I initiate how I actually run this. Generate random win. This is the executable or whatever that I utilize to basically, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like streamline. It streamlines the process. My husband made it. He's a computer programmer, and he was basically like, okay, well, doing it this way, we can basically kind of package it into a single executable so that you don't have to have different code in a different place that you have to execute at different times to create the random sequences and then actually do the alignment. And you don't have to like narrow it down by chromosome. You can download full genomes and do it that way. So it's going to take a couple of seconds because this is like a super fast way of it's like a pretty efficient way of running. And there you go. Max target sequence 1, dog to dog, chromosome 1 to chromosome 1, the same sequence, 100% similarity. Good to go. And my husband was even cool enough to put weighted and unweighted. Like, he programmed this in. That's how we know that BLAST doesn't do it automatically, because he had to program this in.
Was it not? Yep. You have to program that in. Okay. It doesn't do that on its own. Okay. So max HPS 1 doesn't function that way. But what about the other stuff she said about the different alignments? Who else? Who else said that about the percent alignment? Oh, was it me? Yeah, I believe so.
But anyway, here's what I think was going on. All right, let's say for simplistic purposes, we have 5 different alignments that happen. Okay. Let's say you mask the repeats. If you mask the repeats, you won't have that repetitive stuff, and it won't create a lot of extra alignments. And these alignments are the extra alignments that are being created from these repetitive elements aren't very long. They're short sequences, so they're usually never. If you do a sum-to-sum analysis with that, it would never do 100% if you're doing that. But putting that aside for a second, let's say if you had 5 alignments, okay. Put my hand in the camera here. 5 alignments, and let's say all 5 of them are 100%. If you do a global alignment on all 5 alignments, use gauging 100% scale, what would you come up with? Well, if you're doing 100% scale, if you're factoring in those 500s and you're totaling it up as 100% scale, and they're all 100%. Each alignment is 100%, then it's going to come up to mathematically 100%. Okay, that's why she gets 100% on her self-to-self, because her repeats are being masked out. Now, Tomkins isn't using any masking because a lot of these low complexity regions are where a lot of the differences are. So he wants every sequence in order to test that, in order to see where it will create more differences as a result. All right, so he doesn't mask out the repeats, but he uses the best alignment. Now, with Erika, because she's thinking that he's totaling up the matches, let's say you have 5 alignments again, but this time each one's a different percent. Like the first one, the best alignment, it's always going to be 100%, so it's 100%. Then you have, let's say 90%, 80%, 70%, 60%. All right, so you have those 5 alignments, and they are each a different percentage. Okay, or even if a couple of them are the same, it wouldn't matter. But I'm just using this hypothetically. And you did a global percent of that, and engaged it on a 100% scale. Would you get 100% out of that? No, you wouldn't. So if you total up all the percentage of all the matches in doing one sequence, and you got all the alignments being added up, and it's going against itself, which is also adding up all the alignments, and it's doing it on a total of 100% scale, and they're not all 100%, and they're not all the same length, and you got lots of spurious alignments involved in it. Would you get 100%? No. That's why she doesn't get 100% on Tomkins. But she's not actually replicating Tomkins' method correctly. If she was, she'd be using the best alignment. Now, what if I took not those 5 results exactly, but the first one, which is 100%. Okay? And then I compare it against itself. Would I get 100%? Yes. I would get 100% every single time. It's because she's factoring those other 4 and the 5th one together is she's getting less than 100%. That's why she's getting less than 100%. That's what I think is actually going on here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think was going on here. And I said that before. I said that, by the way, that's a clip from my video on the Tomkins controversy, confirming or controlling the narrative. This one I'm going to call confirming the narrative. But that's from controlling the narrative. My last video on the Tomkins controversy. And I published that before Erika published those videos. Before Erika ever published those videos, I published that.
Boy, her head being right all the time.
You know, I was sitting there thinking when I sat there and saw that, I wonder how many evolutionists saw my video and just said, oh, well, he's just full of it. He don't know what he's talking about. And then they see Erika's videos and they're like, wow, now I'm really informed on this. And I'm like, I said the same thing. Maybe I should color code my fingers better. You know, maybe evolutionists respond better if you color code the fingers. Maybe that way, if you color code stuff, maybe, you know, they'd understand better. Sorry, that was a little bit of sarcasm, but in given case, sorry, I couldn't help myself. But anyway, getting back to it, I said the exact same thing. I said it. I didn't do the color pictures and stuff, but I said the exact same thing. So yeah, so that's why she's getting less than 100%, because she is factoring up all of them. She is going to admit this, by the way, of doing that. She's not going to admit the flaw in the programming. She just assumes it's because she's not, that she didn't include a max HPS because she thought Tomkins didn't. But in reality, that would have nothing to do with it, because Blast doesn't do that unless you program it in there to do it. That's the only way it will do that, because it doesn't do that automatically. It would not do that automatically just because all the max HPS does is it just reports all of them. Now, you could sit there and not set it and just take target sequence 1, and it will save only the best match regardless. It's only if you have a program in there. Now, she says she had target sequence 1. That's true, but she still had all those other search results in there. So if you're doing it per alignment like that, it's going to total up all of it. It's going to total up all of it. And as we're going to see in a minute, that's exactly what we're dealing with here. But in any case, I thought that was pretty cool that she's basically saying the same thing that I said. Like I said, she got most of what she said on max HPS correct. She got most of it correct, except for that one thing. Lack of max 8. I had someone in one of her supporters who apparently didn't even see the rest of Erika's video sit there and target that. So what about what Tomkins didn't use max HPS? And it's like, did you not even watch Erika's video? Because Erika actually took back the accusation in the same video, because he said that he was using an older version of Blast where it was default. You know, but anyway, let's continue, because there's some juicy stuff coming up, and I want to get to that.
So the very first thing I did was go and make sure that Jeffrey Tomkins actually wasn't using max HSPS in his parameters. So I went to go check, I found his parameters, and sure enough, Blast parameters utilized were as follows: e-value 10, word size 11, max target sequence 1, dust no, soft masking false, ungapped, and number of threads 6. So I saw that and I was like, okay, well, did Rob Carter replicate Tomkins' methods correctly? I popped on over to his GitHub associated with the video that he released, because, you know, he said he was uploading all of his programs and his methodologies and things like that, and I opened it up, and sure enough, there's no max HSPS here either. So I was like, that's the reason. So Carter isn't actually replicating Tomkins' methods correctly. So I was feeling good, I was feeling happy. I was like, Carter has made the error here. But I wanted to double check, so I went and reread all of Jeffrey Tomkins.
There is something I don't understand here. At least in the video that they're showing, it looks like max HPS 1 is set right here. She said it wasn't set, so I don't know if she's just showing a different screen that is not the exact specs that she's talking about, or what the case is. But it actually does look like max HPS is set here. So I'm not exactly sure what she means when she says that it's not set, because unless of course the screen that she's showing is not what she's talking about, which makes no sense. Then why show it? Because it looks like max HPS 1 is here, and so it does look like he used HSPS 1. So I'm not exactly sure why she says that he didn't use it. It's here on the screen.
Actually replicating Tomkins' methods correctly. So I was feeling good, I was feeling happy, I was like, Carter has made the error here, but I wanted to double check, so I went and reread all of Jeffrey Tomkins' stuff again, and as you know, there's quite a bit of it, and it's a difficult read, and I realized, the reason Tomkins doesn't have max HSPS in that 2015 test is because he was running it on an older version of Blast, where max HSPS was default. The point being, he was utilizing max HSPS, and I wasn't when I was replicating his methods. So all of those Tomkins results for the 2011 to 2015, they don't matter. They're wrong. And that includes my beloved bust of how Tomkins' methods can't even return 100% similarity of something to itself.
Yeah, and another note added in post. I just kind of, while I was editing this, and I wanted to real quickly make a particular note. Again, as I already mentioned in this, I actually came up with my thesis, my particular arguments, why Erika came up less than 100% ahead of time. She makes it sound like she came up with a different reason, and her reason is now we know why, except we knew why when I did it, and I did my video first. So I want to play that clip real quickly, and just kind of real briefly, just kind of discuss it, because she's trying to take credit for something I'd actually discovered beforehand, and so I found that kind of ironic. And on top of that, it's not had nothing to do with max HPS. Well, you'll see and when you go through the video, but anyway, I want to play that clip real quick.
There's a little bit in here that is conversation between Dr. Korf and Brian. He has another video that is like their full interview together, and he talks a little bit about why he thinks I'm saying that Jeffrey Tomkins' methods can't provide a 100% identity of an entity to itself. If you've seen my other two videos, here and here, you already know why that is.
In actuality, the reason everybody already knew why ahead of time, because I had posted my thesis. And Dr. Carter confirmed it later when he did a global percent alignment, came up with something similar. We already knew what you were doing. The question was just simply why you were doing it. You came up with the reason, because missing max HSPS, but that has nothing to do with it. Not as far as the calculation of all the global percent alignment. There's something else that's going on here, and this is what's being revealed in this video. But or going to be, and you'll see this soon. But anyway, but I don't like the fact that she's trying to take credit for that, or make it look like that somehow it's contradicting what I said when it's not. when I actually claimed that first, that she's doing a global percent alignment of all the alignments. And when you have spurious alignments like that, because you have the spurious alignments are due to the not masking repeats, which wouldn't be a problem for Tomkins because he's taking the best alignment. But if you do a global percent alignment of all the alignments together, and you got different various alignments, then yeah, that's going to matter. And I referenced this in the past two videos of the Tomkins controversy. On Erika's self-to-self analysis unmasked, and on the controlling the narrative. Both of those I referenced it. So this, and I even put it in the top of the thing. So despite Erika's trying to take credit for knowing this, she does it. She gets it kind of wrong anyhow, because missing max HPS has nothing to do with it. There's something that's there. I'm not going to give it away. You'll have to watch the rest of the video, but there's something there that's causing her to do a global percent alignment of all those search results. But she's right, there is global percent alignment being done, but it has nothing to do with what she thought it would. But but there is a global percent alignment being done. But I came up with that discovery first. I made that discovery first. So Erika did not make that discovery first. She didn't even know about it at the time that I made it. So this was the last couple months. I've already knew about it over a couple months, and I've already published on it before she ever got around to it. So yeah, already knew this. She discovered this kind of late in the game, but I just wanted to point that out because she keeps on trying to take credit for it. Like, if you see my videos, you'll know why this is the case. No, if you see my video, which came out first, you'll know why that is the case. All she basically did was admit that that's what happened. That's all she basically did. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
That was because I was utilizing the non-max HSPS Tomkins parameter. It's...
Alright. It actually, for start with, I had not checked to see whether the version that Tomkins had used in his, I believe she's looking at his 2013 paper, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go and look and see, but I don't know whether the older version contained that or not. If she's right or not. It'd be interesting if one of y'all want to check up on that and drop me a comment below. That'd be fine. Maybe I'll check on that later. But it does appear that she's retracting her original claim that he did not use it. So for skeptics who think that he didn't use it or something, she's retracting it. But here's the thing. Of course, it wouldn't matter if he used it or didn't use it, because it doesn't do that. That's not what it does. All it does is it reports all the matches. Now, I agree, if you don't want that stuff filtering your search results, then maybe you shouldn't use it. But as far as tallying up and that sort of thing, no, it doesn't do that. It does not do that. That's not what max HPS does if it's missing. It doesn't automatically just kind of filters up a total percent identity of all the alignments. It don't do that. Unless, of course, you program it that way. But in and of itself, it doesn't do it. Now, what Tomkins did, regardless whether he used it or didn't use it, he used target sequence 1, which would save the best hit as the one he wants, because he doesn't care about the others, right? He doesn't care about the other alignments because they're spurious, they're not true one-to-one matches, etc. So he wants the highest hit, the best match. That's what he wants, and it makes sense to get the best match, right? Because it's going to be the best one-to-one match, which will have the most similarity to it. So he's going to get the highest hit, the best hit. That's what he was after. So that's what he does. That's why he does target sequence 1. Of course, he ain't totaling all the percent identity of all the matches. But in a little bit, we're going to find out Erika did. Now, Erika seems to be admitting to be doing that and taking all the heat for it. That's noble of her. But as we're going to see in a minute, there's actually a problem in the program itself that's doing it, not the missing max HPS 1. This was discovered by Rob Carter. We'll get into that a little bit. I have a quote from him from an email that he sent me as well on that. But we actually identify the problem. We know where the problem is now. It has nothing to do with whether you use that parameter or not. Because if you don't use that parameter, you get all the hits. Just like an online version of Last, I get all the hits, but I still take the top alignment because the top alignment is going to be the highest scoring hit. The highest scoring hit starts up top, then just kind of works their way down. Next hit, next scores, next best alignment, all the way down. So the highest scoring hit's always at the top, and that's default in Blast, by the way. And online versions just the default settings mostly. It's automatically programmed that way, but it doesn't automatically program all of the percent identity of every hit. It doesn't do that. In fact, it usually gives you the best alignment, and then you have to sit there and look in the alignment section to find the other alignment, at least on the online version. The command line is probably going to be the easiest one you could be able to program that way. But it's the point that I'm making is that it's not just because of the missing max HPS. It's true though that if the max HPS one is selected and you have that particular parameter, and if you set a program to do every alignment, then of course, if you only have one alignment in your blast search and it's the best alignment, the first alignment, and then the next sequence also has the best alignment, and you're setting it up to do every alignment, and you only have one alignment there, then yeah, it's just going to tally that up. It's going to tally that up along with whichever sequence and tally that up. Right? That's true enough. And you have all those hits and you're doing it, then obviously that would be a problem. But it's not just because you don't use max SPS. It's not. It has to be programmed that way. You have to program it to include all of the alignments. In a little bit, we're going to find out that's exactly what we're dealing with.
Sucks because I copied and pasted the parameters directly into my config file, thinking that would kind of avoid any potential for misconstruing his methods or missing something or the other. But it turns out I was just using a too modern version of Blast. That was my downfall.
But you can't be mad, because you see, the whole thing was an accident.
So, wow, yikes. No excuse for this one, right? Like, this is just a regular run-of-the-mill bona fide mistake. This isn't an incomplete answer. This is a big old goof-up. Bad. And like, I know you know because we've talked about it earlier, but not utilizing max HSPS, like, I should have known, because that is super, super bad, even for Tomkins. That's absurd. You would have to be the biggest intentional liar on the planet or really, really bad at genetics to not utilize max HSPS in your genomic comparison. Like, let me just show...
All right. Before we get into other stuff she's going to show, max HPS 1, it's not what's doing it. There's something in her program that's doing it. But we'll get into that in a little bit. It's really good. But, I mean, not for her, but good for us. But anyway, but not having max HPS 1 has nothing to do with it. And because it has nothing to do with it, it's not a bonehead mistake to include every alignment. It probably wouldn't be the best. I mean, it doesn't affect your results if you're taking the best alignment anyhow. But it probably wouldn't be the best because you have all those alignments that you don't really want or need. What Tomkins did was he used target sequence 1, so it didn't really matter. He only saved the best hit regardless. He didn't really care about the other hits and stuff like that. And of course, he's not totaling them either. But the missing max HPS would not actually total it. What would total it? But we'll get into that. But it's not it's not the fact that the parameter isn't used or not used. That has nothing to do with it. Because you could have all those hits selected, right? And still take the best alignment and tally only the percent alignment. Because Blast will only do the percent of agreement per alignment. That's what it does. It doesn't do it like a total. It doesn't add up all, average up all the alignments, and it doesn't do any of that. You have to do that. You have to either do it manually or you have to do it programming it in. And in a little bit, we're going to find out that she programmed it in such a way, or her husband did, in such a way that it included every alignment. And that's where the issue lies. But I'll get into that. Let's see what she says from here.
Show you the consequences of something like this, right? So I'm doing the same thing as we did before, but instead of using a human and a chimp, I'm using the human versus itself. So human chromosome 1 compared to a legitimate copy of human chromosome 1. We're doing 100 sequences again, and we're going to use my original Tomkins 2013, which lacks the max HSPS function. Now, typically this takes a hot minute, so you'll forgive me if I fast forward us through this. I mean, goodness, I really should have caught this. Like, this is just insane. This is ridiculous. Looking at this, weighted, unweighted, or, God forbid, you use Tomkins' weighting scheme on this erroneous Tomkins methodology, it is just a mess. I mean, again, you would have to be a real bonehead to actually not use max HSPS, and Tomkins, thankfully, is better than that.
That has nothing to do with whether you use max HPS 1 or not. I'm glad. I mean, it's like I said, it'd be better If you didn't, I mean, why include all those other alignments you know are not good, right? So it would probably be better not to use it, but it wouldn't make someone a bonehead if they used it or not, because it wouldn't matter, especially if you're using target sequence 1, you're only saving the best hit regardless. But then again, I guess if you have a program that's including every alignment, why it's figuring what it's calculating, that, and you have that programmed into Blast or into a third-party program that's working with Blast, whatever the case may be, and you have that in your script, then yeah, then it will. Tomkins isn't doing that, but we're going to find out Erika is.
I point this out because Carter seriously harps on the fact that he couldn't replicate my results, and that's understandable. But it is kind of interesting that he spends so much time talking about mine when he also couldn't replicate Tomkins' results.
I can validate Tomkins' results. Now, I don't agree with his conclusions, but if I do what he did, I'll get the same numbers, essentially, in my small data set. Okay, I'm adding a second note in post-production here. I did a lot more work on that question of can I reproduce Tomkins' numbers. Turns out that I can't. I do not get that peak around 69%. That he got, but I did not get values as low as his. And when I graph my results versus his results, my results are generally higher. Now, when I use an ungapped search, they're a lot higher. In fact, between his like 70% range became 95% similarity. But if I use an ungapped search like he did, his 70% range goes up to maybe 75% or something like that. So in general, allowing for gaps gives you worse percent identities. Even though you might get a longer stretch, you get a worse match. But I cannot get to his numbers to pop out of the data. I'm not reproducing them. I'm only kind of approximating them. That bugs me, but right now that's the best I can do.
So I want to round off this section by saying, Dr. Carter, you know why you couldn't replicate mine now, hopefully. So maybe you should figure out why you couldn't replicate Tomkins.
Okay. Before we go further on that, I'm going to comment. I got several comments to make. All right. I did inquiry to the Dr. Carter. This is early on in me and Dr. Carter's email conversations. I did ask him about that. He is referring to generally. He can replicate Tomkins' method generally, meaning he can approximate them close to it. But if you're gauging that on a 70% scale, he said that if he uses gapped, it goes up a little bit, like around 75%. Then he uses ungapped, it goes up a lot higher, around 85%, which is usually the number Tomkins comes up with anyhow. But also another thing to note on that is that Carter is actually using a different, and he knows this in the video, he's using a different human genome. Now, from what I understand, there's not a whole lot of difference between HG38 and HG37. I think Carter is using HG37, if I'm not mistaken, whereas Tomkins is using HG38. Or it could be reverse of that. I don't remember which exactly, but but I know that one is using one while the other is using the other. Now, my understanding is there's not a whole lot of difference between those two, but there might be some, and that could actually cause a difference in the percent identity. I mean, it could raise it up or decrease it and that sort of thing. And so that's part of the problem as well. Not a big problem, but it's there. So that's one of the reasons. But he said he can generally approximate Tomkins' number. He can come close to it, where he couldn't even do that at all with Erika's results. And we do now know. And by the way, funny thing is that Erika is acting as though she's confessing to something that nobody else has even thought of. Who published the videos? Me. I did publish the videos where I actually said that Erika was doing this very thing. Me. Before anyone else, I did that. Okay, I made that discovery. She's acting like this. She's confessing to something. I don't know. Maybe she didn't see my videos. I don't know. But either way, I'm the one who sat there and said this originally. I said it first. You saw the clip where I sat there and even go through it in my last Tomkins controversy episode. So you know that I've actually done that. If you go to my Erika self analysis unmasked, I talk about that in that video. So she's not just confessing to something that nobody's thought of. She's acting like she is, but she isn't. I discovered that. So Erika apparently wants everyone to think that she did. She figured that out. But anyway, yes, we know why, and my thesis has been confirmed over and over again. So yeah, we know exactly why Erika could not be replicated by Carter. Her whole experimental design is completely, or the whole experiments that she's done, every experiment she's done is completely flawed, just completely false. And we're gonna get into that here in a second, because it's going to really debunk her in a major sort of way. But we're going to discuss that here in a little bit. But in any given case, the reason why Carter couldn't get exactly Tomkins' number is using a different human genome. And so, but if you gauge that based on his other studies, then the 85% would be exact. The 85% would be exact. The 75% might be a little lower, but it's not too far off. Not too far off from Tomkins' results. But so the 85% actually puts it right there on the money, really. It's only if you gauge it using the 70% stuff that it seems like it's higher, much higher than that. But it's but that comes very close. Even the 75%, it's very close in either direction. 75% would be very, very close. Either to 70% or to the 85% number. So I would say that Carter did a really good job of coming very close to Tompkins' number. That we know why he couldn't come exact, because of those differences there.
No, Dr. Carter didn't figure this out. He seems to think that there's some kind of bug in my program. I found that very irritating because my husband is extremely good at his job, arguably better at his job than I am at mine. So no, Dr. Carter, there isn't a bug in the program. It was just a bona fide knucklehead mistake on my end.
All right. Now we're going to start talking about it. Carter, in his previous videos, mentioned that he thinks that there was a bug in the program. Now, why do you think that? Well, if you do a self-to-self analysis, like I said, if you use the best alignment, which is what Tomkins is using, you should get 100%. If you don't get 100%, the problem is usually on your end, usually involving issues with the algorithm. Now, there is a way to get less than 100% on your end if the repeats are not masked and you're doing a total global percent alignment. Then yeah, that will get you there. However, Tomkins isn't doing that. Tomkins isn't doing that. But we're going to see in a minute, Erika is. And she admits that, but she admits it for different reasons. She thinks it's because she is not using the parameter of max HSPS, whereas Tomkins did. That has nothing to do with it. Not as far as the calculation. You have to program it to do that. Now, it is true, if she did not, if she had used that program or that parameter, then obviously, if you're doing it per alignment and you only have one alignment for every sequence that you're comparing, then yeah, you would, you get like a percent identity for this, percent identity percent like this, and then you tally up there at the end with the weighted and unweighted scores, then that's fine. You could do that, and in which case it would not have that problem. But however, if you don't use that parameter, you get all those hits. That's correct. She is right about that. You get every one of those hits, now including the best alignment. Now that wouldn't be a problem if you didn't program your script to calculate every single one of those alignments. If you don't do that, then that's not really an issue, because you could sit there and still take the best alignment, like I do on my experiments involving the online version of BLAST, because that's automatically set. It doesn't set the max HPS. I'm always getting every single alignment, including the best alignment. But I can choose the best alignment over these other spurious alignments, these other partial matches. And as a result, now if you set the program like that, then it will. All right. So she said that her husband is better at her job than she is. You know, when I first heard her say that, I was sitting there thinking, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. I was kind of mean to say, it's like I've seen your response videos. I very much hope that he's better at his job than you are yours. But I try to sit there and just like, you know, maybe I shouldn't say that. But with her, though, here's the problem. The problem is in the program. Now, I don't know if you'd call this a bug. I've wrestled over this. Is this a bug? I don't know if you would call this a bug. Bugs are usually like algorithm mistakes that happens in the program, but it's basically like a flaw, like a glitch or something. That's how I'm viewing bugs. But this is a programming mistake. This was done intentionally. I'm not accusing them of any kind of deception. Okay, we'll talk about that more here in a minute. But this was done on purpose. This was done in the program. But let me. Well, we're gonna dive right into that. Give me a second. All right. We're gonna dive right in. I am going to cue my full screen, and then we're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna just go talk about the discovery that Carter made. First, before I get into I'm not going to go to my email account. I get in too much trouble with my email account because I miss information and then I have to correct it later. So I'm not going to be showing my email here. What I'm going to be showing is a quote from Dr. Carter concerning that in an email exchange. But I'm also going to be showing the image that he showed. But I'm going to do that here in a second. Before I do that, I want to actually go to Erika's program. Remember, she said at the beginning, she said, yeah, she includes this in her GitHub. I want to play a clip real quick. I've got another clip for you. This is the one where her husband comes on there at the beginning. But her husband said that if there's any issue at all, let him know. This is an issue. This is a programming mistake. But it does, it has some major implications. All right, we're going to be doing a video or showing a clip from what her husband said shortly after the beginning of this video started.
Anyways, I try not to make the same mistake twice, so here's that GitHub link, Dr. Carter, and anyone else who wants to use it. And here's a quick note from the creator of said link, my husband.
Hi, I'm Luke, aka Mr. Gibbon. I'm a professional software developer, and I helped Erika put together the BLAST tool. You can find it on GitHub at this link. Yeah, so we put together the tool pretty quickly. It's just kind of thrown together, so if any of that is bad, that's not my problem. I don't know anything about genetics, so probably about the same level as everyone else involved. There may be some bugs in there, there might be problems. I don't think there are that many, at least, hopefully, but it should be pretty good either way. So check it out. If you do find any bugs, please report them. You can open an issue on GitHub, or if you have any problems installing or anything like that, please let us know and we'll try to update the instructions. It should all be in the README though.
All right, so but in your case, all right, let's dive in. Let's see what the problem is, and if there's a programming issue. He says he doesn't know about anything else other than anybody else involved. That's not true because there are geneticists and biologists involved with this, so that would not be true at all. But there's a lot of people involved that do know a lot about genetics. I don't think Erika knows as much as, I mean, she might know more than the average person, but she don't know much more than Tomkins or at least she don't know more than Tomkins or Carter or anyone that's got experience in this area knows, because she makes a lot of mistakes regarding it. But in any given case, that's not the point. The point is that this is what was from her husband. I think it was a way of defending the idea of whether there's issues or bugs or programming mistakes or whatever the case may be. He almost sounded like he didn't want to take credit for it. It's like, that's not my problem. So if you program it that way, it's an issue. It's an issue. And so, especially if you don't employ max HPS 1 and you got all the hits, and that wouldn't be a problem in itself, because it doesn't matter if it did, because Blast is not going to automatically calculate all the percentage of every alignment unless you program it that way. In a minute, we're going to find out he did. All right, let's cue my screen and let's get to it. All right, we're here in the GitHub that was mentioned by Erika. All right, I guess this must be the account by Mr. Gibbon, he says, calls himself. All right, and this is the script. He wrote that up. He's a professional programmer. He knows what he's doing as far as programming. According to Erika, he's better at his job than she is at hers. All right, I don't know what that says about that, but okay. Look, this is a programming mistake that was actually discovered by Rob Carter. We're going to get into that here in a little bit more. But look what, this was pointed out to me by Rob Carter. Look what it says on data row. Whatever is it doing? It's doing this per row. And so Rob Carter says, okay, what is it doing then? Per row, what's it doing per alignment? Well, if you go down here a little bit, you see p ident sum plus equals. What this means is that every alignment, it is totaling it up. It is totaling every alignment up. Then when you go down here to the unweighted section, look, p ident sum divided by total length. So it's taking the total percent identity of every alignment and dividing it by the length. Wow. All right, so this is a programming error found. You can find this in GitHub. I'm going to include this link in the description box below so that if you want to look for this, you can. It looks like it's at starting at 172. It's got numbers here on the left side. 172 to 184. So just kind of look at the numbers. That would help you find it. I had to actually look for it in there because Rob Carter sent me which we're going to see in a minute, sent me a picture of the actual programming mistake. All right, let's jump on into that. All right, this is what Rob Carter sent me. Okay, he sent me this picture right here. This was a copy of the picture that he sent me. He said on data row, okay, so it's like, okay, that's saying something per row, and then you go down here and you see the p ident sum right here, and then you see down here to the unweighted section, and it's taking the total of the p ident total of the p ident sum, the total of the percent identity, and dividing it by the total length. Wow. All right. Let me get to the email that he sent me, because right after he sends that picture, he includes an this message below that. Okay, this is from the email exchange with Dr. Rob Carter. All right, it says here's what quote from him. He says, that line in yellow, he's talking about this right here. He said, that line in yellow tells us that she is doing something with each row in the blast report. What is she doing? Look down a few lines to where it says p ident sum plus equals. Yup, she is adding up all the p ident scores in the report. A few lines down from there, look for where it says unweighted. She takes the sum of all the p idents and divides by the number of rows, by the number of alignments, is what he means. And he says, boom, that is the mistake she admits to. That is a massive oversight. Look at the charts I sent you back in December. If you average all the results, even the top hit equals 100%. If you are going to get something in the high 80% range from email exchange with Dr. Rob Carter. Just another real quick note added in post-production and editing. I decided to sit there and include this real quick. What Dr. Rob Carter is talking about here is an exchange of emails that we had concerning where me and him had an exchange back and forth on the self-to-self analysis. Remember when we were hashing out, he was helping me hashing out a few extra details. And, well, he did an experiment, ran an experiment for me. And he did, when I had suggested all this to him about the global percent alignment that I think he's doing, and he thought that same thing, and then he did an experiment. He got like 1 million hits or something like that, and then he just kind of did a global percent alignment and came up with 86.6%. That's what he's actually referring to. He's referring to that you're going to get something, you know, between the mid to high 80s. Probably high 80s in reference to it. Now, Erika, of course, had gotten some things within the low 80% range as well. But the point is, the 86.6% that he got was actually in the middle of that. But that's what Dr. Carter was talking about. Wow. All right, talk about a major mic dropping moment for Dr. Rob Carter. This is huge. This is massive. This has massive implications. We're going to talk about that in a second. But this has massive implications. There is a program mistake in her program that is calculating per alignment. Now, Rob Carter thought she was admitting to this, but I don't think she was admitting to this because this would identify her husband programming it that way as the issue. But she's not admitting to that. What she's admitting to is she's claiming is that she didn't use the max HSPS 1 function, and she thinks that Blast calculated all of that stuff up. But that's not the case. You have to program it that way for it to do that, unless you do it manually or something. And that's not what's happening here. Tomkins is taking he's not programming it that way. He's taking the best alignment, which is what he's taking, and he's using the percent identity from that. That's what his data is consisted of. What he's not doing is he's not calculating all the alignments up like that, regardless if he's using max HPS or not. If he's not, he uses target sequence 1, and he only saves the best alignment regardless. It wouldn't matter the other stuff because he's not doing anything with them. However, her program actually calculates up all of the percent identity. Now, remember what Erika said in her response to the Tomkins interview. She said that she knows that weighting and unweighting has to be programmed in because her husband did the programming. He programmed it in. That's what she said. So that means her husband programmed the script where it would include every alignment. Now, if you don't include that max HPS 1, then sure, then that would be as much of an issue. Now, of course, it has nothing to do with whether you include max HPS 1 or not. It has to do with if the programmer programmed it in that way. Probably not a good idea to program it in that way. I think he did that so that she would be able to get a total percent calculated from all of the experiments and stuff. But she wasn't taking into account the fact that Tomkins is using the best alignment. This is also the first time that Erika ever admitted to not actually replicating it. She even put it in quotes like I always did when I argue with her. So let's get this straight, okay? Before I go there, I do want to point out something. The implications of this is far-reaching. It's not just on self-to-self. Yes, her self-to-self analysis is totally bunk, but it's not just that. It's not just that. This has implications over how she calculated the results for all the other experiments that she done, both the one in her original videos and in the newer one, because this is like a later realization for Erika. Okay, because she said that she had to check out this, and this, and this, and she thought this was the problem, and she checked that out, and so this is a later development. So that makes all of the experiments that she's done, either in her original or now, and she even admits this in the video as well, it's wrong. It's wrong. So let's get this straight. Okay? After months of going through this controversy, after lots of arguing, lots of debating, lots of criticisms being thrown out there, videos being made, video responses being made, after months of doing all of this, after months of Erika dogmatically defending and claiming that she had replicated Tomkins' method correctly, after a long time of her doing all these experiments and throwing it up in our faces, after all her supporters are throwing it up in our faces. Oh, well, Erika disproved Tomkins. Erika debunked Tomkins. Look what she did here. She showed this through all her experiments. After Erika doing it, after Erika supporters doing it, her friends are doing it, Ruhif, Glenn Williamson, is doing it. All these people are doing this. And it was all bunk. Every single experiment. Wrong. Yep. By the way, well, just to let you know, though, there are certain things that because you might wonder, say, why do we even continue this series then? Maybe we should just cancel out. It's done. We won creationists. Let's move on. The reason is because it doesn't really solve all the arguments. It doesn't answer or respond to all of them. So I feel like that this series still has promise in those areas. For example, the gapped and ungapped thing, because Erika and Ruhip are now working off of a secondary claim with the ungapped parameter, gap versus ungap, and Ruhip dropped a recent video on that. That's going to go unscathed from this mistake that was made. That's going to go unscathed. So I still have to deal with the ungap thing regardless. Also, of course, there's some stuff from the Tomkins, from Erika's original Tomkins response, responding to Tomkins I want to take care of. I'm still trying to see if I can get Tomkins on my channel. I still want to do that, hopefully. Also, there's also other issues as well. For example, she tries to raise some secondary issues with, she goes further to try to raise some issues with the results that Tomkins used when he used the Lassie and the Nuckmere results in his 2015 paper. Now, we'll deal with that later on down the road, but Erika apparently doesn't know that much about it, so she reaches out to Glenn Williamson, who probably knows less about BLAST than Erika does. But, of course, this wasn't about BLAST, but it's about Nuckmere and Lassie. Most people don't seem to know that much about those programs. I don't know that much about the programs, to be honest. I'm going to have to do my research on that as well. And Dr. Korp said, at least as far as Lassie, he might know some things about Nuckmere. But as far as Lassie, he didn't know that much about it. He knew a little bit, but not a lot. His area of expertise is more centered around BLAST rather than Lassie or these other algorithms. But so I'm going to have to put a pin in that and do some research later. But as far as Glenn Williamson is concerned, he is a very, in my opinion, he's a very deceptive, very nefarious, very devious person. I've had lots of issues where he is not on the up and up. His lack of morality confuses. I'm glad he watches my video. That's great. I'm glad you're here, Glenn. I really am. But unfortunately, I've had too many run-ins with you that it's where it's to the point where I definitely don't trust you anymore. Tomkins told me some stuff about scandals, but that's not the main reason I don't trust you because of my personal issues that I've seen, where I've actually seen that you can't be trusted. Here recently, for example, there was a problem that I was not aware of in my last video. Apparently, some of Carter's personal information, such as a phone number to his office, I guess, was on the side of the email. I didn't know that. I didn't do the actual email, show the email exchanges or nothing. I was just simply proving that I didn't, on the forward thing, that I didn't forward any emails from Erika to Dr. Carter. And so I was demonstrating that. But unfortunately, it had the information on the sidebar. Well, Glenn, the right thing to do would be to alert me of it, because the only person who can fix a problem wrong with my my videos is going to be me. So no matter who you talk to, if you talk to Erika, if you talk to Glenn, if you talk to YouTube, if you talk to Carter, if you talk to Tomkins, whatever, if there's an issue with my videos, do you know what they're going to do? They're going to contact me every time, because I'm the only one who can fix it. So it does no good to contact all these other people when I'm the one who has to fix it. And I will fix it. I always fix it. And if anybody sees a technical issue, I'm not talking about if you see a problem like you don't agree with what I said or something like that. You know, there's going to be differences and issues involving that. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about trying to get into an email debate with me or anything like that. I have enough people like Glenn and Erika that likes to try to email me, debate me. But I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, like, if you see an actual problem with technical information, maybe some information the guy's posed, I'm human. I make mistakes. I overlook things. By all means, I have tons of ways that you can contact me. The best way is through my email. My email is always located in the description box below, so you can send me an email if there's an issue, a technical issue, or something like that. And feel free to send me an email and let me know that. Also, my email is also located in my website, and also there's a chat thing in my website that you can chat with me. If you don't want me knowing your email or something, you can chat with me. It'll send me an email that someone is in that's sending me a chat, and then I'll go to my website and check that out. So it has a chat function there. If you want to utilize that, you can also drop a comment below. I rely heavily on the YouTube algorithm or the YouTube alerts to send me alerts when I get comments. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. Sometimes it doesn't send me an alert when someone comments. That's why I don't consider it the best way to contact me. For the most part, on average, you could probably drop me a comment. I'll probably catch it, most likely. But the best way to get a hold of me, especially if it's really important or about something personal or something, would be through email. That would be the best way, because I check my emails like 1,000,000 times a day. So I'm constantly checking my emails. When I come in from work, I work overnights, and when I come in from work, I check my emails. That's what I do. The best way to get a hold of me would be through email. So by all means, let me know. I will, if there's an actual problem, I will see make sure there's a problem if I don't remember doing something, and then if there is a problem, I will fix it like right away. Because I feel really responsible for it if I made an issue like that. I'm human. I can make mistakes, but I always try to correct my mistakes. Now, Carter contacts me about this because Glenn sends him like a screenshot, which he likes doing, and to Carter, and told him that I had this on my video, and I'm like, what? Because I didn't know that was there at all. Because I was looking at the email screen, and I didn't realize that there was something on the side like that that had that information. And of course, my eyesight is not the best anymore. That's why I'm wearing green glasses all the time. And so I went to look, and it said, wow, that is there. And so I immediately sent a email to Carter, told him that I was going to take the video out publicly for a little bit while I'm correcting the mistake, but I'm going to use the blur function in YouTube Editor, which I did, and I did it immediately. Now, Glenn, here's the deepest part. If Glenn really cared about Carter's information being out there, of course he doesn't, but if he did, he would have just contacted me, because I'm always the person I'm the only person that can fix a problem with my video. So if there was an actual issue, and he really cared about getting the issue resolved, he'd just contact me. But he doesn't. He doesn't inform me at all. He doesn't even tell me about it at all. Not a reference, not a hint, not dropping me a comment. He did nothing. All he did was went directly to Carter. And Carter, of course, goes directly to me. And I sat there and looked it up and found out it was true. I sat there and contacted Carter again, let him know immediately. And Glenn's whole purpose in doing all this. And me and Carter both figured out what he was doing. He was trying to cause a wedge between me and Carter. He was trying to cause chaos. And because Carter has been a very big help with me on this controversy series. He's been a massive, huge. When I get done with this controversy, I'm going to give him a huge thank you. I'm going to give him all caps thank you. Thank you for helping me on this. Because he's been a blessing in disguise on this. He's been a massive help on this discussion. As I'm moving forward the video, hashing it out, giving me some details, being able to correct some mistakes that I was making and so forth. And so he's been a massive help in this discussion. And I really appreciate Dr. Carter, Rob Carter, for that. And obviously, Glenn is trying to cause problems there because he's, like I said, he's like a massive resource for me in this particular series. And so he's trying to cut it off is what he's trying to do, trying to cut him off from it. But it turns out that his plan backfired on him. Once I found out about it, of course, Carter, not only was Carter far more understanding than Glenn was willing to give him credit for. So he understood, I made a mistake. It was an oversight on my part. But I immediately went to fix it. And I immediately told him I was going to fix it. And he was impressed because he said that, this has happened once before and the person just refused to fix the issue. But I was willing to fix the issue right off the bat. So he was actually impressed with my promptness. Strangely enough, even though Erika falsely accused me of doxing, she also was impressed with my promptness. So this idea of, oh, well, Carter is going to turn against you now. No, it didn't happen. It backfired. He actually was more impressed with me. And his respect for me went up. He was very appreciative that I was going to fix his problem like right off the bat without hesitation. And I did, just like I did with Erika. I fixed it immediately. And so it had the reverse effect and I even sent Glenn an email later letting him know that his plan failed miserably, trying to cause that wedge. It didn't happen. Not only did he underestimate Carter's understanding nature, but he also didn't take into account that I was going to fix it immediately, and that alone would impress Dr. Carter. So it had the opposite effect. So Dr. Carter is a great guy. I really respect Dr. Carter. We have some differences, of course, but that's okay. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Carter. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Tomkins. I don't really have any respect, be honest, just to throw it out there, just be honest. I don't have any respect for Glenn. And it's not like I'm saying, that I'm not saying something super negative to Glenn. I'm just simply saying that he has proven himself to be an untrustworthy person. It's very hard to respect someone that does stuff like that and is devious. And he's done other devious stuff too involving me as well. That's not the only thing. But anyway, since her main information is coming from Glenn Williamson, not exactly a trustworthy source as far as I'm concerned. It's a very untrustworthy source. And I didn't give him case. But anyway, I will put a pin in it because I will still be a fool if I didn't at least check it out, regardless of what my personal feelings toward the trustworthiness of Glenn Williamson. I'm still going to put a pin in it, and I'm going to check out what she says on the Last Z stuff and the Blast or the Nuckamere stuff. And so, and Tomkins is 2015. So I will be checking that stuff out. But in any case, but this is big. This is huge. The huge implication is that every experiment she ran on original videos and on these are bunk. They're toast. They're no good. You no longer can use them. This is incredible. This is like a big win for us creationists. All the creationists in the room, do your happy dance because take a victory lap or something because we won. All her experiments, everything that has been thrown up in our faces by the other side for months, has now been debunked by me, by Carter, even by Erika. It's like, wow, this is huge. Very much so. Now, there's other stuff, there's other issues that will not be scathed by this. But in terms of the experiments that she did, which has been a big part of those videos. This makes everything, that she's done on that, this blah. Stick a fork in her, she's done. You can't sit there and because it messes all of it up. Because it doesn't just mess up the self-to-self, it will also mess up her experimental results. Because if she include every alignment every single time, then it's going to give an inaccurate result. Now, she tries to harp on this like, well, why would I get numbers at least close to Tomkins? It's just because you're using shorter sequences and those are all being totaled together. It has nothing to do with you actually coming close to it. In fact, even she admit the numbers were off. But the reason the numbers were off was because you were not replicating Tomkins' method correctly at all. And so that's the reason. And now it's not just because you used or didn't use max HPS where Tomkins did or something. It's also because of the accessory sequences. She talks about that. I think in this video, she talks about it, but not in the clip I have, but she does talk about that. But she thinks that if she's not doing a whole genomic comparison, therefore the accessory sequence don't matter. Except she is. That's what she was doing with her good method versus the Tomkins' method in all of her experiments, is that she was doing a whole genomic comparison. In fact, she even says that in her video, in her main video on this early on. She says this that her goal was still a whole genomic comparison at the end. She did 300,000. I think it was, she said like 300. She said 300 times 1,000, so 300,000 base pairs per chromosome, and she does it, and all the way at the end. And her end goal was an entire genomic comparison. So she was doing a whole genomic comparison, even though she's now saying that was not her goal in order to get out of the fact that she didn't include the accessory sequences. So that's very important. I'm sure Carter would have some additional things to say on that, but either way. But she didn't replicate Tomkins' method. She didn't use best alignment. She used the total it. She claims that Tomkins did use max HPS on, or at least defaulted in BLAST, and she didn't use that parameter because she thought Tomkins wasn't. She I already mentioned this, but she totaled up the percentage of all the alignments, which is not what Tomkins did because he used the best alignment. She had that programming mistake, so that's not good. Regardless, even if she replicated Tomkins' method correctly, that programming mistake would mess everything up, regardless. So that's an issue. Yeah. Well, let's move forward. I think there might be some more stuff that Erika wants to talk about.
Really, it puts me into wingnut or knucklehead McSpazatron territory, how goofy that was for me to think that Tomkins wouldn't use max HSPS. I mean, that, like I said, that's just unthinkable, even for Tomkins, who I think is quite bad at his job.
Yeah, Tomkins ain't bad at his job. I can think of a few people there are, but it's not Tomkins.
But he wouldn't do that. Tomkins simply would not run a comparative genomics analysis and have multiple matches for the same alignment and then average those to get a percent identity. He would not do that. Jeffrey Tomkins would not do that. He wouldn't. He wouldn't be that stupid. He wouldn't be that goofy. There's no way he would make such an asinine mistake. He wouldn't. He wouldn't not use max HSPS or its equivalent in whatever even program we're looking at. He wouldn't not use it in a genomic comparison. There's just not a shot, because if you were to do that, that might make you a top contender for the world's worst geneticist.
Now he's fixing to get on some of the stuff that I already brought up. But anyway, no, that would not make you a worse geneticist. In fact, would not make you a bad geneticist at all if you did that. But the insinuation there made it sound like he already did that, but that's not what she's going to go into. What she's going to go into is the stuff with Last Z and Nookmere, and she claims that Glenn had told her that this was the equivalent of not using max HSPS, but that has nothing, not using max HSPS has nothing in the world to do with totally in percent alignment, unless you program it that way. And she programmed it, or her husband programmed it that way to include every alignment. And that's where the issue lies. Not so much as with the max HSPS, because you could not have that parameter program and still take the best alignment, because it doesn't do the math and average all that up, unless of course you program it that way, which she did, or her husband did. And that's why you wind up in that issue. Erika's statement there at the end, she takes her hat off because she's getting to be exalting. She makes it sound like Tomkins did that, but he didn't. The last C and the nuclear stuff, the parameters are going to be different. So this is not talking about max HPS 1. And normally I would just say that if it was a true equivalent to max HPS 1, that it wouldn't matter one way or the other. But given her and Ruhib's misunderstanding of what max HPS 1 does, it's very possible that either way, I don't know what they're talking about there as far as that goes. So I'm going to have to put a pin in that and come back to it later and look into what they have to say on that. I may do it when I do the gap versus ungap stuff. But anyway, I'll have to look into that, see if it holds a whole lot of relevance to what I'm going to be discussing. But anyway, I'm not going to do that right now. So that's all I wanted to show you today. But this is huge. This is massive for this whole controversy. And when Dr. Carter first showed me this was wow. This was a major mic drop moment. It's almost like, okay, for months they've been using this stuff. For months, Erika's been saying that she replicated Tomkins' method correctly. For months, this stuff's being thrown into our faces every single time we're sitting there debating them. Got people debating us. Erika's debating us somewhere, and throwing all kinds of criticism, some wild stuff getting thrown out on Carter's channel. Months of this over and over and over again, just for us to find out that it was all bunk. Every single one. Every experiment that she had ran. Toast. Okay. Now, of course, there are other arguments that are unscathed by this. I recognize that, like the weighting versus unweighting. I will deal with that later. The gap versus ungap, at least the argument they're making now, it goes unscathed by this. So I understand that there are other issues involved with those, and we will talk about those later in this series. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, get subscribed. Make sure you hit the notification bell to be alerted of all future notifications. Do not forget to give the video a thumbs up, please. I would really appreciate that, because that helps me out a whole lot. It helps the YouTube algorithm, gets this information out to more people, and gets more people involved in that. So please do that. But this has been awesome. I'm gonna go and close it out now. But this is a major win for us creationists. Do your victory dance, do your happy dance, or a victory lap and your happy dance. We won this. We won this round for sure. We might have won the war, because most of these videos have been centered around those experiments. So we might have even won the war on that. But there's still a few issues that we have to hammer out, and we're going to cover a lot of this stuff as we're moving forward through the Tomkins Controversy series. And so please join me there. And thank you for watching Apologetics 101 and the Tomkins Controversy. Remember to always stay in the know.